Well, Magic Adventurers, in today's video we're going to be going through a few different puzzles that are along the theme of poison. Let's get into this. So yes, it is I, Nathaniel Gomezian, shopkeeper and proprietor of Gaming Treasure Chest. In today's video, as I said, we're going to be doing puzzles with the theme of poison. And the reason for this is because of Uzi Wolf and Needed a Name, who both said that they wanted to see puzzles with the theme of poison. I mean, Uzi Wolf did also mention water, which we might get into at another point, but water puzzles just makes me think of cursed memories of going through the water temple in Ocarina of Time back in the day on the N64. But anyway, we might get into that in a future video, but today's video is about poisons. And if you have an idea for a theme that you'd like to see poisons put around, then why not put them down in the comment section down below, because yet again, I might do a video on it in the future trying to focus it on your theme, because I said I want to make this a lovely community thing where we can come up with ideas together and have good times, play D&D, puzzles and like. But anyway, poison as a theme is a lovely theme because, as stated in one of the comments, poison is massively underutilized. Like, not many people use poisons in D&D or roleplay games, not too much anyway, but it can be a fun way of doing things, and a very basic way of being able to use poisons is simply just the room filling up with poisonous gas, and you can put that on any puzzle that I've already previously done on previous puzzle videos, and the poison is there, which the players are taking damage as they're in the room, and it becomes a timer. So it's like the time limit of they've got to solve this or they could potentially dying there kind of thing. I would put that on less complicated puzzles, but it's a nice little thing which adds an urgency into what the players are doing. But I said that's just a basic idea of what you can do with poison. But talking about a poison-filled room, let's get into the first puzzle. So the first puzzle we're going to get into is the Poison Chamber, which is a very simple puzzle, but what makes it fun is that there are so many different ways of solving it that it's just fun to see what the players do with it. So let's get into it. So the Poison Chamber has the very simple setup of your players make their way into the room. The door can be like over here, and there could be like a door leading the way out here, but the door is closed and there is a button next to it. And the second one of your players presses that button, this door behind closes and locks, which is where the interesting thing comes in as to whether or not all your players are in the room or whether or not there's still one or two players outside while there's only like one or so in the room. But that's just up to what happens with your players. You can't really determine what's going to happen with that. But anyway, what happens is as soon as they press that button, that door locks and the room starts to fill with poisonous gas. Now obviously your players can make constitution saving throws, but the second that they fail one of those, they start taking damage every, let's say, minute or so. It can be like 1d6 or whatever damage you think is suitable depending on your party's level, because obviously you don't want it to be like, too much damage if they're low level, but you also don't want it to be too little damage if they're high level. But obviously that's dependent on what level your party is. But anyway, what also happens when they press this button, as well as the room filling up with poisonous gas, is that these tiles or platforms raise up from the floor. Now it can be as many of them as you want. I normally have it being the number of party members, but as I said, it depends on what you want to do. You can make it one more than there are party members or whatever, but the basic idea is that when all your party members step on the different platforms or tiles, then the doors open and the room actually starts to ventilate, like the poisonous gas stops coming in, there's vents that appear in the ceiling and the gas vents itself out and they no longer take any poison damage. But the moment one of those party members steps off of the panel or tile, then the doors close again and the room starts to fill with poisonous gas again, because all of these things have to be depressed and stay depressed. So what happens here is that your party members have got to come up with a way of weighting these things down, and then that will allow them to be able to leave the room. Now obviously, as I said, this can lead to different strategies from your players to try and do this. Now I will say, make it so that it's a little bit more weight than just something that they can just take out of their pocket, like a couple of rations or something. It has to be a little bit more substantial than that. You can have it so in this room there are barrels or boxes or whatever that your party members can move to be able to put on top of these tiles or panels. But it's always interesting to see what your players do in this situation, because obviously there are different abilities that can be used here, like maybe a druid can use stone shape to be able to take maybe a part of the wall and shape it into a stone they can then put on top of these tiles
and that is one way that they can get out of it as well. So it's always interesting to see the different ways that your players decide to try and get around this, and I would say reward your players for when they come up with really like creative ways of doing it. Another thing that you can do is that if you can say that this is maybe inside a kind of like cave-like structure, you can say that there are stalactites from the ceiling that they can also like shoot down with magic or in whatever way that they want, and they can take those stalactites and put them on top of these things as well. Always remember, stalactites hang because you can hang your tights on the washing line, and stalagmites grow out of the ground. I always remember that because if you've ever seen a termite mounds are kind of very similar to stalagmites, so that's something for you to think about, and it's also something which will hopefully let you be able to remember that simple thing. But anyway, as I said, it's a very simple puzzle, but it's very fun to see the different ways that your party decide to come up with getting themselves out of it. The poison plays a very minimal role in this one, but it's still there and creates an urgency that they have to deal with, and obviously, as I said, all of those things have to be stepped on or pressed on at once, so if one of your party members is in there on their own, it can be very distressing and interesting to see what your players do in that moment in time. But as I said, that is the first puzzle, so let's get on to the next one. So the second poison themed puzzle is the Poison Chalices puzzle, which I know is potentially going to make you think of the Indiana Jones with the Holy Grail, which yet again is actually a very interesting poison puzzle where you can have it that there's loads of different chalices on the table and they've got to choose the right one because only the one drink can help them move forward and all the others are poisoned. But that's not actually what this puzzle is, but that is actually a very interesting puzzle that you can use. And obviously you have things around the room which will be clues to what the chalice is that they either have to drink from or not drink from. That's just a little bonus puzzle that I haven't really gone into details with. That is actually one that you can use and is really fun from Indiana Jones. So the setup for this puzzle is that your party members walk into this room and they can see there's a door along the way, but they can't get through the door. In this room there are 3 statues, potentially 4 statues, but we will get into that. There is also a table that has got the amount of chalices that there are statues. But also on the table is a note which says the following: 1 paralyzes, 1 blinds, 1 hurts, and the optional one can be 1 can make you tell the truth. So these statues, let's get more into them and explain what the hell the actual puzzle is which is going on here. So the first statue is in the shape of a ghoul, so a humanoid kind of creature that's hunched over with claws on its hands and feet. And so this one, the actual note refers to the fact that it can paralyzed. I don't know whether or not you know this or not, but ghouls have a kind of poison whereby if they attack you, then they can cause you to become paralyzed. And so when I was googling different poisons which are in D&D, this is one of the poisons which is in there. I know that it's not actually like ghoul poison, and it does say contact poison, but for the sake of this, we're going to say that all of these poisons are in liquid form, and this poison, one of its abilities is that it can paralyze the creature. So in one of these chalices is this poison basically which can paralyze, and the idea of it is that it relates to the ghoul, because on all of these statues there is a bit where the chalices can be placed, and basically the idea of the puzzle is that you're trying to place the right chalice with the right creature, so basically matching up the poison with the poisoner. But let's get more into the details of these other statues. So the second statue is of a spitting cobra. Spitting cobras have got an ability called venom spit, which is their venom basically can cause the target to become blind. So that is what the note is referring to when it says 1 blinds. And so in one of the chalices is basically the poison malice, as I said, in liquid form rather than the inhale, because malice can cause blindness. And so your players have to put that chalice with the spitting cobra statue. The third statue is of a purple worm. Now this is one of those things whereby you can chop and change it yet again depending on the level of the party, because purple worm poison can do a significant amount of damage. I mean, it does 12d6 point of damage, which obviously for a lot of the lower level characters, this could potentially kill them outright. So depending on the level of your party, you can use the purple venom poison. If they are a little bit more low level and you don't want it to affect them like this crazy amount, then you can use the wyvern poison, which does 7d6 damage instead of 12. Still a lot of damage, but it is far more manageable to be able to handle. And basically that is in one of the chalices, and you've got to place it with either the wyvern statue or the purple worm statue. Now, the fourth and optional one, as I said, is the one that can make you tell the truth. And this was just because when I was going through all the different poisons, one of the poisons is actually truth serum. It's classed as a poison in D&D, and it can cause the effect of the zone of truth. I really kind of wanted to include this one just because it is a fun kind of roleplay aspect, because as your players are trying to work out which poison is in each chalice, potentially they might be drinking it, and if they drink this one, it can cause them to have to tell the truth, and that can just lead to some very interesting roleplay aspects if other members decide to take advantage of that and try to ask, you know, quite probing questions, which they might not have answered truthfully in the past. Now, admittedly, if you've read Zone of Truth, you know that the players don't actually have to answer those questions. They can just avoid answering. It's just that they can't tell a lie. So they don't have to answer the questions. They just basically can't lie when those questions are posed to them. So there is ways around it if your players don't want to go that way. But it can be fun, and sometimes players will lean into it. And so that's why I kind of wanted to include the Truth Serum one, but you don't have to. And that's why it's optional that there is a cleric statue in this thing, because obviously clerics can cast Zone of Truth, and so that's where this kind of like poison matches up with them. But what becomes interesting with this is how your players go about trying to figure out which poison is in which chalice. Do they drink it themselves, or do they bring maybe something that they've attacked earlier on in the dungeon along with them? Maybe like a goblin or something along those lines, or a kobold that they decided not to kill. Maybe they brought him along, and this is the result that they then force feed them what's in the chalices to try and work out what each one does. But obviously this just comes down to what kind of party you've got in front of you. A lot of them will just try to drink them themselves, and obviously this isn't going to cause much of a problem unless it's the one that hurts, because obviously that is going to do significant damage. If you read through the different poisons, you'll know that the paralyzing one only lasts for a minute, so it will paralyze the character, but it won't last long. The blindness one can last for up to an hour, but it depends on whether or not you want to change the time on that one to make it less, or you can keep it the same, and it'd just be interesting to see how your party progresses further on in that dungeon with a blind member. And obviously, like the Truth Serum one is just like a funny one to put in there, but I said it is the one that hurts that's going to cause significant problems. Now, with this, what you can do is that if they place the wrong chalice in front of a statue, you could have that statue react in some way, which then kind of can give a clue. And by that, I mean that it would inflict the problem onto whoever puts the chalice there. So let's say that you put it in front of the Spitting Cobra and you put the wrong one. The Spitting Cobra can shoot venom out of its eyes and blind whoever has put the chalice there, thus giving them the hint that that's the poison which goes with that one. Obviously, I said like you can have the ghoul paralyzed, you can have the cleric, if the cleric is there, cast like a Zone of Truth on them, and I said it's the only one that's going to cause problems is the one that hurts, because if they keep getting that wrong, then that's going to cause some significant problems for the party with the amount of damage that they'll be taking. But as I said, it can be a way that they can work this out, and it does help them to be able to work out what goes with what, as well as also inflicting terrible punishments on your party. But that's just a way of using poisons in a fun little way of just a mix and match kind of puzzle, and I think it's a quite fun idea. But I said I'd love to hear what you think down in the comment section down below, or if there's any other statues or creatures that you would put with different poisons, I'd love to hear that as well. But anyway, that is just the Poison Chalices puzzle, and obviously when they place all of the chalices with the correct statues, that's what opens the door. But anyway, let's go on to the next puzzle. So the third poison puzzle is the Cauldron Conundrum. Mostly called that because I love alliteration, and so that's the reason why that is called the Cauldron Conundrum. But let's get into the setup for this one, because there are a few multiple different ways you can do this, different variants. I will go through them, so let's get into this. So as your players walk into this room, one of the ways you can set this up is that there are flowers everywhere, growing in plant pots, or growing along the walls, or growing out of the floor, whichever you want. But basically there are flowers everywhere in this room, and in the middle of the room there is a cauldron. Now, the doorway that leaves this place, there is a barrier which is there, and the players can't get through that barrier no matter what they do, because basically the idea of this is that they have to make a potion within the cauldron that they can then drink, and that will allow them to go through the barrier and continue on through this. What you can do is, as they investigate more around this room, they can find a potion recipe book, and in that potion recipe book you can have a number of different potions if you want them to have like some fun in this room. But one of those potions within there is basically going to be the potion that allows them to leave. So it could be something like potion of exit, potion of entry, potion of sesame, if you wanted to add in a little extra banter of like an open sesame as a little kind of cryptic thing in there. But you don't have to, those are just options. Whichever potion they have to make to continue on through this dungeon or wherever they are will say something along the lines of this, which is: like a plant, these must be added starting from the root and making the way up. And then the plant which flourishes in tight spaces. So as I said, all the plants in this room are different colours, and that's very important that you need to let your players know that there's like a blues, reds, oranges, whites, yellow, green, whatever, pink. And so with the first one, the plant which flourishes in tight spaces, if they take one of those plants and squish it between their hands or tread on it, it basically obviously is put in a confined space. It makes whichever plant that you've got connected color-wise to this glow and also like grow a little bit bigger. So let's say that you had like the blue plant as being this. Whenever they take the blue plant and crush it between their hands or on their feet, it starts to glow and grows a little bit more, like petals and whatnot start to come out of it. So that obviously, as I said, relates to the blue flower. If they try to do it with any of the other color flowers, nothing happens basically. So it's only one of these things which triggers when they do this. So the second one, the plant which flourishes on the liquid of veins, is basically like the liquid of blood which is traveling through their veins. So if they drip blood on, let's say, the orange flower, then that starts to glow and grows a little bit more, and that lets them know that they've activated that one. Whereas if they put blood on any of the other flowers, nothing happens. The next one, the plant which flourishes hanging near flame, you could say maybe the green flower. If they take it and put it near flame, nothing happens if they're holding it upright, but if they put it upside down near the flame, then that's when it glows and starts to grow and flourish a little bit more. And so that's how they know that they've activated that one. Whereas yet again, none of the other colours do anything when you put flame near them upside down. And then the final one, the plant which flourishes in the void of darkness. If they take one of the plants, let's say the white plant, and they put it into a dark place, even confine it in a corner or wherever they do, cast darkness, it will then make that plant glow and start to flourish. But what is more important with this one is they put it in the right order, because if they just start throwing these things into the cauldron, then if they've got it in the wrong order and they drink the potion, it will then poison them and cause a poison damage or whatever kind of poison effect that you want to be able to inflict on your players. Because if they read what was in the recipe book, it says starting with the root and making your way up, basically meaning start with the bottom and make your way up. So it's got to be the one which is in darkness which goes first and then make their way up. As long as they add the flowers to the cauldron in that order, then it will create the elixir or potion that will allow them to, when they drink it, continue on past the barrier. So as I said, that's just a little something which can trip up the players sometime, and that's the reason why it creates a sort of puzzle within a puzzle of this thing. But that's just one variant of how you can do this. As I said, if you wanted to have flowers and whatnot, another variant that you can do of this is as they walk into the room, there are loads of jars with different body parts and things like eyes and tentacles and whatnot of different creatures, and that all the jars are labelled, and basically in the recipe book it can say something along the lines of starting from the last and making your way up. So basically meaning the same thing that was done with the flower one, but obviously I tried to theme it more cryptically within the flower thing of starting with the root and making your way up. But obviously you can just put something along the lines of starting with the last and making your way up. If your players are getting a little bit too confused and still not putting the items in the right order, then you can have one of them make a wisdom check or something like that, and if they roll quite high, just say, rereading this, you're thinking starting from the root starts at the bottom and then making your way up. Maybe that's the way. So you can help your players out if they're having a little bit too much trouble. But as I said, with this one, it just says starting with the last and making your way up. The eyes that can turn the living to stone. And so this is referring to basilisk eyes. So one of the jars will have basilisk eyes. There will be jars with mimic eyes and loads of different eyes, but one of the jars will be basilisk eyes. So it's basically the players need to have some kind of knowledge of these creatures to be able to work out which ones are which. Now, for people who have been playing D&D for a long time, they'll probably be able to metagame this quite hard, but for those who haven't and those who are new, you can say that also in this room is a bookcase that's got loads of different books on different monsters, and so if your players search through them, then they will be able to find what kind of relates to what. You can also say that they can make a history check or a nature check to see if they know any of these creatures and any of their abilities. So that's another way that you can have your players work with this one. But anyway, let's continue. So the second is the flesh which can regenerate with the absence of flame, which refers to troll flesh, because trolls can regenerate but when they're not on fire, because basically fire stops them from having their regenerative capabilities. So that's why that little bit is added of the absence of flame. But basically one of these jars will have troll flesh or whatnot. But as I said, you would have other different fleshes within different jars as well, just so that it makes it so that they've got to work out which one is which. The next one is the ooze of that which engulfs its prey. This is referring to the Genatulus cube. I probably said that wrong. My mind for some reason can't say the Genatulus. Anyway, That's the point, because basically they engulf their enemies and dissolve them within themselves. So it'll be the ooze of the Genitalist Cube, which will be written on one of these things, which I said you'll have different oozes as well. And the final one, the tentacles of a brain devourer, which is referring to mind flares. So it'd be mind flare tentacles in one of the things, but I said you can have like kraken tentacles or octopus tentacles or whatnot in different jars as well, which just means that your players have then got to work out what goes with what. And as I said, yet again, they have to put these things in the cauldron in the right order, otherwise they will become poisoned under whatever effect you want the poison to have. But as I said, if they get it right, they can drink the potion and are able to move on forward through the door. Now you can add somewhere in the recipe book a reset thing for the cauldron. So basically say something along the lines of, in the recipe book it says, if you stir the cauldron 3 times counterclockwise, then it nullifies the liquid. And you can also let the players know this by saying like maybe that when they walk into the room, the cauldron is bubbling like a pale green, and as they start adding ingredients, like it maybe changes to like a blue or purple, but when they stir the cauldron 3 times counterclockwise, it goes back to the original green, just so that they know that it's reset. So if they start adding things but add the wrong things, they can actually stir the cauldron to be able to put things in the right order or whatnot. So just having a little reset in there is a good thing to be able to do, just so that like if they do put something in wrong and go, oh no, crap, I was supposed to do that, then it allows them to then go back and be able to do something. Or pour the cauldron out, I guess, is an option, but that's just a way that I just think is slightly nice to add into the recipe book. But I did say that I was going to give you another variant of how to use this kind of thing, because that was just if you're using it in like a dungeon setting. You can also have this that maybe the king has been poisoned and your players make their way down to like the apothecary, and the apothecary's out on holiday or whatnot, and they've got to mix up the antidotes so they can look through the room and find the potion book for an antidote. And this can be like the same kind of setup where they have to add the things in the right order to be able to make the antidote to be able to give to the king or whoever the hell they want to give the antidote to. Now what you can put in here as a stipulation is that maybe the king won't drink it until one of the party members drinks it, because like he wants to know that they've got the antidote correct. And if they're not actually the normal doctor, maybe he doesn't trust them. So if they mix up the wrong ingredients in the wrong order when they take the potion, yet again, they can become poisoned in different ways as well, just so that they don't just straight out poison the king double and potentially kill the king and create terrible problems in that way. So it's just an out for that if they have to drink the potion themselves beforehand, and then obviously when they get it right, they drink it, nothing happens to them, they can give it to the king, and all is well in the kingdom. But as I said, that's just if you want to go down that line. I said the king just because that's just the first thing which came to my head. It can be whoever the hell you want to be poisoned, and that your players have got to come up with the antidote. So this is just another variant on how you can use this puzzle. But anyway, let's get on to the next thing involving poison.
So the final puzzle of today's video involving poisons is kind of less of a puzzle and more of a kind of maybe trap room, but it's still an interesting concept and is inspired by one of the Harry Potter books / films, but you know, the books are better than the films anyway. And it's not where you think I'm going with this one from the first book, the Snape room, but that is actually more of a puzzle. Well, I'm saying this is a trap room, which is actually in the Half-Blood Prince, when Dumbledore and Harry are in that bit of Voldemort's like cave thing, and he's got to drink the potion to be able to get to the amulet which is underneath it. But the setup for this one for your party members is as they walk into the room, they can see that they can't get through the door. They can try to get through this door, but there's no way of getting through. But in the middle of the room there is a pillar with a bowl on top of it, and in that bowl is a liquid. And basically, as they start drinking it, because it basically has to be drunk for the door to open, it starts to like basically enfeeble mind them, kind of like what happens with Dumbledore, where it's like a kind of like they go a bit crazy and scared, like I could put the fear condition onto. But basically it can be that one party member is trying to feed it to another party member who is like basically almost like refusing. The party members are kind of having to try to restrain while also trying to make them drink, but so they're in a kind of fearful state. But while this is happening, as soon as they start drinking from the bowl, then you can have monsters of some description attack, be they undead or some kind of creatures, can start attacking the party. But obviously they can't really do anything with the person who is drinking, because they're not in a fit state to be able to fight. and so what happens is these monsters or things keep coming until the potion is completely drunk, and then that's also when the door opens. So it's kind of the party members are having to fend off things while one party member's also trying to get one of these other ones to drink the potion, and it can lead to just an interesting dynamic where obviously if you've got a party of say like a 4 or such, that 2 members are trying to defend while 1 member is trying to obviously make the other one drink, and it can just be very interesting to see how that goes down. If you want to add on to this in another way, you can say that as they're drinking the potion, you can ask them what creature their character fears the most or something along those lines, and that is what appears in the room and the party has to fight, like the other members have to fight, and it's basically that also increases the fear that's kind of like being put on them by the potion, which then like increases how many like the visions and how many of these different monsters are kind of in the room, because it's basically the players are fighting against the fear of that character who is drinking the potion. So yeah, again, that's another way that you can kind of take this if you just don't want to go with generic undead or whatever kind of monster you want that's attacking these people. But as I said, as soon as the potion is finished, the door opens and also the monsters like kind of like dissipate or vanish kind of thing, and it takes maybe, it depends on what you want to do with this, like, you know, it can take maybe a few moments for the character who is drinking the potion to regain their sanity, or if you want it to be that they have to have like a greater restoration or something like that, that's more if they are more higher leveled party. But if it's just a simple like a lower level party, I would say that like a maybe give it a while or maybe a short rest is what then gets them out and gets them back to their sanity, where they can then rejoin the party to continue through the door, which is now just opened, to see what else is going on in the rest of the dungeon or wherever, like evil lair, wherever you've placed this particular puzzle. So yes, those are my ideas for like puzzles slash the last one being a trap, ideas for different rooms that you can do involving the theme of poisons. But as I said at the beginning of the video, if you've got any different topics or ideas or themes that you would like puzzles to be themed around, please put them in the comment section down below, because I look through all of them, and if I see something that I'm like, yes, we're going with that, I will make a video on it in the future. So please feel free to do that. I love reading your comments anyway. If you also want to just support the channel, then please like, subscribe, all the YouTube things, help a little man out who's trying to live his dream. But I said, do not feel forced, those are the options. There is also a Discord server that I'm currently trying to set up, where like to build a lovely community all about D&D, maybe try and get so where people can try and find games and whatnot. But that's what I would love to make happen. If you want to do that, then also you can join that, links down below. And of course there's also the Etsy shop of Gaming Treasure Chest, where all the things in there are things that I have designed and 3D printed myself, and they're all mostly around like weapons that you can hold dice in, or things to do with D&D, just little decorations, potentially some of the things. But please feel free to check that out if you want to and help support the channel. But as I said, do not feel forced, those are just your options. I hope that you enjoyed today's video, and until next time, goodbye!